Welcome to Trading Day. I'm Roger Peterson. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get to some of the stories we're following in the BNN Bloomberg newsroom. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says the recent moves by Prime Minister Mark Carney and China are political noise. Lutnick also says Carney's maneuver toward China may seep into talks over a revamped North American trade accord later this year. And Lutnick adds Canada has the second best deal in the world behind only Mexico. The U.S. Commerce chief says Canada's tilt toward China could become an issue in talks over revamping CUSMA. Toys R Us is facing at least 7 lawsuits in Canada from landlords who say they are collectively owed more than $30 million in unpaid rent and other damages from the struggling retailer. Documents filed with an Ontario court last year claim toy store chain failed to pay rent for several of the properties it occupied in 24 and 25, sparking the lawsuits. The spaces were owned by such landlords as Rio Trin Properties and Callaway Real Estate Investment Trust. Procter & Gamble cut its earnings expectations, citing higher restructuring charges and a challenging consumer market. The downgraded outlook comes despite the company reporting higher revenue in its latest quarter, driven by price increases used to offset lower sales volumes. And looking at the markets, we are hovering right around the record high right now. And it's up 0.73% for the TSX, so that actually might be a record. I'm not sure if it's an intraday high, but definitely topping the closing high. So we'll see what happens for the rest of the day. And U.S. markets doing very similar. Lots of green down there as well. Everybody up around 1%. Okay, time now for a look at the Canadian markets. Despite the recent roller coaster ride courtesy of the geopolitical and economic uncertainty, our next guest says it is important to stay focused on fundamentals when investing rather than trying to keep up with the headlines and, of course, time the market. Joining us now is Erica Lau, CEO and lead portfolio manager at North Growth Management. Erica, thanks as always for joining us.
Thank you.
So I'm guessing you haven't looked at anything this week then, just to stay out of not get caught up in the headlines and the geopolitics, because what a start to the year it's been.
Well, that we are anticipating that this year will be as volatile and as unpredictable as last year. So we're buckled up. We're ready for a wild ride. And the latest Greenland tensions highlight what is the noise to come this year.
And how do you stay focused when things like this are unfolding? I mean, we watched the markets on Monday dip, some of them close to 3%. I think the NASDAQ was close. And the Dow was off, the TSX was off. How do you stay focused and kind of ride this through?
Well, at North Growth, we do not make investment decisions or changes based on short-term events or macro events, actually. We really do focus on the long term, and we look at the fundamental characteristics of individual stocks. What we're looking for is investment in high-quality companies with good balance sheets that grow their earnings and trade at reasonable valuations. And when we focus on that, we are very optimistic starting this year. What we saw in the later part of 2025 was that there was, particularly in the United States, a broadening out. So it wasn't just the Magnificent Seven who were reporting good earnings. Many other companies were able to navigate the economic environment, and we saw good profitability from the companies. And along with that, there was a broadening out of the stock performance as well. So as you saw over the past few weeks of this year, small and mid-cap stocks have been doing very well.
Just going to the Mag 7 to start there, kind of a lot of people are saying almost it's Mag 2 maybe, depending on how things are unfolding. And people are seeing AI, but they're also seeing a bigger picture of AI, it feels like.
Yes, what we've seen in the AI trade is that it's broadened out to include the picks and shovels of AI. There has been more thinking, not just, say, NVIDIA supplying the chips, but the data center build out and the power needs. So that in itself is also a positive. It is a driver of the economic growth that we saw last year.
And what are your thoughts on companies that are now starting to use AI and really incorporate it? Are there leaders emerging, and are those the ones you want to keep an eye on?
We're just seeing the beginning. We are seeing a lot of the data center build out. And one of the stocks we really like is Ciena in the United States. Ciena is a networking company that makes hardware and software for fiber optic cables that connect the internet. AI is actually driving enormous growth for more bandwidth. As the internet usage goes up, there is more demand. But beyond that, the data center build out increases the need for scaling across and for machine to machine communications 24/7. And so that is driving enormous demand for Ciena's technology. And we are seeing it in the company's backlog, which is growing. They are increasing their margins and they're increasing their revenues. And so the expectation is that there is going to be an accelerating earnings growth.
And I guess we'll get on these a little. We'll get on the other one that you're liking as well. Bird Construction, similar reasons, opportunities with the data centers, or is it beyond that for them?
There is data centers with Bird. Bird Construction is a Canadian nationwide builder of large-scale projects, which range from infrastructure to industrial to buildings, which include data centers, but also hospitals and schools. So it is really a beneficiary of this Canadian building movement that is underway. Bird Construction has seen good revenue growth, and it has a really strong backlog, a robust balance sheet as well. And we really like their collaborative business model setup, which typically avoids a lot of the cost escalation risks that you see in the construction industry.
And how are they working that? Explain a little bit how that works then.
So they work with their customers. They do not really take on fixed price contracts. So they don't bear the risk when you have cost escalations. They are able to basically maintain their margins very well.
And with the infrastructure we've talked about, are we starting to see projects emerge from all the talk we heard from politicians, the Prime Minister and others, that infrastructure and build out is what we need? Are we starting to see those projects starting to move forward?
We're seeing a lot of plans, we're seeing commitments, and that should translate into actual shovels into the ground.
And I want to go back just a bit to the bigger picture about staying away from the unpredictability, the volatility that we're seeing. And you mentioned some of the things you look for in a company. What are some of the things you feel that helps those companies achieve the growth and the returns that you're looking for? What are some of the key factors within the company, in companies that you're looking for?
Well, management is a key factor. And because we do focus on long-term, we take a look at their strategies. We take a look at their track record of execution. We like to see companies have a strong balance sheet so that they do have the financial stability should times get tough. They would be able to weather through. And we also pay attention to how much they are trading in the market. So those are just the fundamental things that we look for when we examine the companies on their own. The key is also we do like businesses that have a competitive moat, or they have very either they've got special expertise or they have a very good execution where they are able to stand out from their industry.
And are there some sectors that you find are a little more resilient to some of the geopolitics and everything else that you keep a closer eye on?
Well, the more defensive sectors are what people think of as consumer staples, utilities, but because our philosophy is growth at a reasonable price, a lot of the growth names that we find are in the technology sector. There are industrials. We like healthcare, even though that has been a very out of favor sector. We do take a very long-term view, so we are looking for growthier names in the long term.
Yeah, healthcare has it's a bit of a rough ride for it. We've heard a couple of times, oh, maybe it's turned the corner. Any indicators that it has turned the corner?
We are seeing stabilization in a lot of the research, and research will be ongoing. There is an unlimited need. The demographics support healthcare spending. So not only for services, but going forward, there are still many diseases, there are still many healthcare conditions that need to be solved.
And so you're optimistic. Any other sectors that you feel might be undervalued, underappreciated right now?
We do take a very holistic approach to how we construct our fund. So, on a high level basis, we like certain sectors, but again, we do focus on individual names and just focusing on what makes a certain name a good investment.
Okay, we have to wrap it up there, but Erica, thank you as always for joining us.
Thank you.
Erica Lau is CEO and lead portfolio manager at North Growth Management. We'll have more coming up after the break. The founder of Lululemon is speaking out. I guess we should add again after the company launched a new line of products that received some backlash. For more on this, we're joined by BNN Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscaya. Lindsay, thanks always for joining us. What's going on now with Lululemon?
Well, this is the Get Low line. This is the latest line coming out of Lululemon. And there's been some public backlash because of the quality of the product. So I believe we have some pictures of the product here. A lot of customers are saying it was ill-fitting, it was sheer, so basically see-through. And we know that Lululemon kind of pulled this line from its website temporarily to look at customer feedback and get some better results. They are back online now, but we know Chip Wilson, I believe we have a...
Sorry.
He's a controversial figure.
He's outspoken. He speaks his mind.
He's outspoken. He speaks his mind. He's the founder. He used to be the CEO of Lululemon. This is part of his statement here. So he's talking about this latest line, the Get Low line, and talking about how this is a new low for Lululemon. He says he believes the company had lost its cool for some time. Now he thinks the company has completely lost its way. And he says this is not the fault of the employees. He's really blaming a lot of this on the board itself, saying when it comes to product quality testing, he's questioning the product quality testing, like what's going on here behind the scenes. It's a very long statement coming in from Chip Wilson, but this is not the first time this has happened with Lululemon when it comes to their lines. There was another one back in 2024 that was pulled completely because customers were saying that it was ill-fitting. It was, again, see-through. So when we're talking about this one today, the Get Low line, you can see it here. It's now back online, but it comes with a sizing tip, which most of the products on Lululemon's website do not. So this one particular line, it has shorts, it has leggings, it has a top. It says to size up. So I guess that's part of the feedback that they looked at when they pulled it.
So it's not as stretchy.
It might not be as stretchy. Or it's stretchy, but it's a little bit see-through. So if you size up, then maybe it's a little less see-through. Yeah, I have not tested the product myself. I don't have it.
Neither have I.
These are some of the complaints coming in, and it's just kind of the latest stumbling block, I guess, for Lululemon.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with them right now. They have all kinds of issues to a degree.
Yeah, to a degree. They have some CEO issues, I guess you could say. The current CEO, Calvin McDonald, he's planning to step down at the end of January. They're now currently looking for a new CEO. The board of directors has a comprehensive search process out right now for a new CEO. But we know Chip Wilson's been pretty vocal about that, too, saying that he believes it should be a kind of independent third party who comes in as CEO and turns this company around. We know Elliott Investment Management also has a stake in Lululemon, and Elliott Investment Management is kind of a firm that goes in and takes big stakes out of companies and shakes them up. Yeah. And kind of helps to turn them around. So when it comes to analyst ratings for Lululemon right now, many are actually at a hold or a neutral. There is hope, especially with potentially a new CEO coming in, that this company could be turned around. But yeah, it's been a tough year for Lululemon. Even in 2025, their stock price dropped about 50%.
And there's been no real hints as to who the next...
Not yet.
No, right?
No, I mean, right now...
Not even tips or anything floating around.
Chip Wilson has mentioned a couple independent names that he would like to see as potential CEOs.
And Elliott has floated one as well, right?
Yes.
Or pushed for one.
There's some pushes for certain people, but at this point there's no names floated. And I should mention as well that when Calvin McDonald steps down at the end of January, there's the CFO and another member of the company who are going to step in and be like co-interim CEOs until a new one is found. But this is a company that's been struggling, not just because of issues with certain lines. It's also competition from other companies, right? Like there's a lot of different athletic wear companies that have come up. It's very popular. And also people are just wearing jeans more. Like less people are wearing leggings outside. Just trends are changing.
And then we're just casual. We're not super casual. We're
past
people have to go back. They have to go back to work.
We have to go back to
work.
work.
Got to wear clothes.
Got to wear clothes, and you know, jeans are in. Lululemon doesn't make jeans, so there's a couple of different reasons why Lululemon is kind of going down, but a lot of analysts are saying they could go up again.
And we'll hear more about it. All right, Lindsay, thank you as always. BNN Bloomberg's Lindsay Biscay. When we come back, we'll hear from U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on why Canada might be making a big mistake in shifting trade focus to China. That's next. All right, we are waiting for the Prime Minister to speak after his meeting with his cabinet. But right now, we're going to take a quick look at the markets. He was supposed to come up right at 1 o'clock, but he's running on government time, so he's running a little late. But take a look at how things are performing right now. You can see the TSX. It was up at the record high. The record closed from Monday at around 33,090. It's pulled back a little bit. Still up 0.6% for the day, rebounding, of course, after that sell-off on Tuesday. Had a good day yesterday. It was up. And the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ as well, you can see they are bouncing back, of course, and that all stems from the Greenland. The talks about Greenland looks like they're going to have negotiations, no invasions or anything like that, as Trump had alluded to at some point. So we are seeing things calm down and return their upward trend that's been going on. Let's take a look at a couple of the sectors. Take a look at what materials is doing today on the TSX, if we can pull that up. It is up more than 3% for the entire group right now. Everybody's on a bit of a run right now, and leading the way, you can see over the last year up 121% for the materials. That's gold and silver and everything. And not surprising, leading the way there is new gold. It is up nearly 12%. Do we have new gold? Probably even, it might be even a little, just shy of 12% right now. And that's one of the ones leading the way, and that's we've got some recommendations. This is all tying in with the core mining, the plan to buy it. That is fueling this run right now, and a couple of other nice turns right now when it comes to the mining sector. SSR mining also up by a similar amount, and Seabridge as well. Look at that. Actually, SSR is doing even better. It's up by 12%, more than 12%. Let's see what's you can see what's driving that. Any upgrades from TD Cowen, and that happened this morning. And so the mining companies right now driving the market, the TSX again, approaching near record territory. And all eyes, of course, we're waiting to hear from the Prime Minister. And he was heading home, though, from Davos when the U.S. president was calling him out at the forum, chastising Carney for his speech on Monday. Trump saying that, remember that Canada lives because of the United States. Some strong words. CTV's senior political correspondent, Michael Couture, has more.
I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful.
The U.S. president with some tough talk for Prime Minister Mark Carney. It comes a day after the Canadian leader spoke in the same room at the World Economic Forum, criticizing superpowers that use tariffs as leverage.
They should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Donald Trump didn't say which statements, but Carney's speech urged middle power countries to act together.
When we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness.
Trump also said Canada gets a lot of freebies from the U.S., but it's unclear what he was talking about. Some Democrats say the comments about our country are unfair.
Canadians have followed us into every major conflict we've been in, whether we were right or wrong. This president has so disrespected them that they're now talking to China.
Carney wrapped up his trade trip to China and Qatar with a stop in Davos, but he didn't have anything to say about Trump's speech. In a statement, the Prime Minister's office told CTV News there are no plans to comment on the president's speech. The two leaders also didn't have any interaction while in Davos, which could be a good thing. according to this former special advisor on Canada-U.S. relations to then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Canada will be well served to have a more dedicated, specific conversation with the president or his team in the coming weeks and months, especially on the topic of CUSMA as we head towards a review deadline.
And there's little time to waste, as that deadline to decide what happens next with the trilateral trade agreement is July 1st. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Ottawa.
And, all right, next up we have an interview that ran with the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who is speaking with Bloomberg News Editor-in-Chief John Micklethwaite.
Let's begin with that topic of Greenland. What exactly happened in that room? I've known you a long time. Nobody doubts your powers of persuasion. But we all saw Donald Trump on the podium saying that he wanted that big, beautiful block of ice. Goes into a room with you and he says he has a framework for a deal. What did you do?
President Trump has been clear from when he was in office, Trump 45, also when he came back into office, Trump 47, that when it comes to the protection of the Arctic, with a priority on Greenland, we have to spend more energy, more time, more focus on this, because we know the sea lanes are opening up. The Chinese and the Russians are more and more active. So what we discussed last night, how in a practical sense we can get this done, and we agreed on these two tracks. One is the 7 countries in the High North, including the United States, working together to protect against any adversary. So that will be something where NATO is heavily involved. And then when it comes to Greenland specifically, continuing the discussions they started last week. The Danish delegation, Secretary Rubio, Vice President Vance in Washington, to continue that discussion. Also to make sure that when it comes to Greenland specifically, their economy, their military situation, Russia and China will never get access.
And the Danes and sovereignty, is that all assured?
We didn't discuss at all about that issue. So we discussed how can we protect Greenland, how can we protect the wider Arctic region. And again, I think President Trump was the one who reinvigorated NATO at the summit in The Hague with the famous 5%. I think we can be thankful for the fact that he again has been able to take leadership on this issue. How can we collectively protect the Arctic?
So the latest rumours out there that it will be involve sort of bigger bases, longer leases, but not actually changing sovereignty, and the idea of far more American troops. Is that the sort of basis of it?
We didn't go into those details at all. We know that the Danes are completely open to having more American presence in Greenland, and Greenland is open to that. And I think it is good that these discussions take place with the 3 of them, because at the end I cannot negotiate on behalf of anyone. I was listening to a lot of people. I think there is a landing ground here, but in the end, of course, now we have to make it happen.
Do you think this is the week when Europe finally discovered its backbone?
I think this is the week where collectively, one, we decided to focus on this important topic under President Trump's leadership, and second, the week where we continue to focus on Ukraine, because I think that's still the main issue at the table, to make sure that Ukraine sustains in the fight.
In Trump's speech, there seemed to be a degree of linkage between the two. We're backing you in Ukraine, I want Greenland. Do you think that's a healthy?
Yeah, I never comment on speeches of leaders. What I do is look at the practical.
Very lucky in this case.
But I look at the practical stuff. And President Trump has been clear from day one in office, and as he was already in his previous presidential term. And I spoke with him then when I was Prime Minister of the Netherlands. We have many meetings, and I know he is really worried about this thing of the Russians and China. And he's right there, getting more access to the Arctic. So I think next to saving NATO, he is now clearly taking the lead on making sure the Arctic stays safe.
And on Ukraine, what is your assessment of what's happening on the front there? Because there seem to be two very clear things. One European leader saying, look, Ukraine is really in trouble. Others saying, look, Ukraine is doing a bit better on the battlefield.
I think what you see is that the front line is not moving in the right direction. It is moving westwards, not eastwards. At the same time, it is extremely slow. The Russians are making very incremental gains, so not huge, very small gains, against huge losses. They are now losing 1,000 people a day in December, so 30,000 over the months. I'm not talking about seriously wounded, really dead. It's terrible, the losses they are experiencing at the moment. And of course, also on the Ukrainian side, we see losses, but not to that extent. And so the Ukrainians are extremely courageous in defending the front line. But again, it is slowly not moving in the right direction. And I think the peace process is really crucial here under leadership of President Trump again, but also with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Marco Rubio. And I think the security guarantees are now in a good place, almost nailed. We are close to a deal, I think, on reconstruction. And now this sensitive issue of territory also has to be solved.
All right, that was NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte speaking with Bloomberg News editor-in-chief John Micklethwaite. Now, we are awaiting Prime Minister Mark Carney. He is expected to address the media at the cabinet retreat that has been going on in Quebec City. You can see the flags are out, the podium is out, security is out, everybody is out. All the ministers have come out. We are now just waiting for the Prime Minister, and this comes on the heels of that retreat, and some of the focus on it was they're expected to discuss several issues on this two-day retreat. The big key things being economy, the economy itself, affordability, and security, of course, in the wake of everything that has unfolded over the last week or so, the proposed deals with China, when it comes to canola and electric vehicles. Sean Fraser, one of the ministers, was wandering around there. This is live TV. This is what we're waiting for to see what will happen. This was supposed to start at 1 o'clock. So a half hour ago, we might have maybe some major announcement. Right now, we'll have to see. I mean, a lot of the focus will be on what happened in this cabinet meeting. They changed it. They usually call them retreats, but they've changed it. But that focus, again, when we're talking about the return to Parliament on Monday. So all of this, and then we'll be big out in the House again. And of course, I'm sure he'll be asked about the comments by Trump that we heard, and also Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and of course, what he was talking about today in that interview that happened earlier on Bloomberg at the Davos Forum was that he called Carney's speech political noise, is one of the terms he used to describe it. He said, "Give me a break. They have the second best deal in the world, and all I got to do is listen to this guy whine and complain," talking about Trump's speech, or Trudeau's speech that was well received by so many around the world. Now, of course, we heard from a response, of course, from President Trump the next day. That speech was on Tuesday, the next day on Wednesday, and he kind of warned Mark to be nicer, essentially. A bit of a veiled threat there. Carney, of course, in that speech had warned that the old world order is dead and urged middle powers like Canada to band together. And so all of this comes, of course, with the new deal with China, or the changes to China, the lifting of the EV ban, the EV tariffs that the Americans still have on Chinese vehicles. That was met with some resistance in Canada. The Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, upset about it. He says he learned about this deal only hours before it happened. He's calling for a boycott of any EV vehicles from China. He says it will destroy the manufacturing sector, or the automobile sector in Canada, specifically in Ontario. So there's a lot unfolding as we get ready for the House to return. While we're waiting, we're going to move on, do some more business stuff. Let's talk about the markets. Everybody in a good mood right now in the response, of course, to the news there'll be no tariffs on European countries, and that there will be negotiations regarding Greenland and an American presence there. Of course, there's already an American presence, but you can see the markets reacting favorably pretty much to all of this right now. The TSX Composite, it's up 0.6%. It had been at 33,090, which is right around the record close. It's pulled back slightly in the last half hour or so, but you can see the S&P 500 is up 0.8%. The NASDAQ as well, it's up 1.12%. And taking a look at some of the drivers right now, one of the big ones that we're seeing is New Gold. It is up. If we can pull that up, it's having a lovely little day. It's up 11.6%. And Goldman just came out. Goldman Sachs raised their year-end gold price forecast by more than 10%, reflecting growth in the private sector diversification into bullion. And they are predicting it could be $5,400 an ounce by the end of the year. So, all right, we're going to continue to wait for the Prime Minister to come out. We will have that live when he starts talking in Quebec City, the cabinet retreat. For now, though, we're going to take a bit of a break. China's ambassador to Canada, Wang Di, is urging Ottawa to move fast and make progress on areas of collaboration both countries agreed to during Prime Minister Mark Carney's visit to Beijing last week. During that visit, President Xi Jinping and Carney agreed to resolve a tariff dispute that had Beijing put levies on agricultural goods from Canada in retaliation for Ottawa's tariffs on electrical vehicles from China. Vancouver-based General Fusion is set to go public after filing for a NASDAQ listing through a merger with Spring Valley Acquisition Corp. The Fusion Energy Company would trade under the ticker GFUZ in a deal valuing it at about $1 billion US. General Fusion develops magnetized target technology for carbon-free power. Shares of GE Aerospace are falling. They're off more than 5.6% after the company's outlook came up short for investors. GE Aerospace recently forecast annual profit above estimates, driven by strong demand for aftermarket parts and services. Airlines are expected to prioritize maintenance spending due to aircraft supply constraints. Demand for new aircraft continues to outpace supply as airlines seek to capitalize on robust travel demand around the world. And taking a look at the markets, you can see the TSX surging again today, back on that winning streak. It is up 0.67% at one point. I'm just looking today. I think it hit 33,128 as a high. So it's pulled back from that, which would be a record close if it gets back up to there. It's hovering right around the record right now. And south of the border, similar situation unfolding. Good day all around. Everybody is in the green. The S&P 500 is starting to push towards 7,000. It's up 0.79%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, we're looking at 0.93% for the increase. Again, all of these sitting in record territory. The Dow might be pushing 50,000 soon enough. And the NASDAQ also up more than a percentage point. Of course, we saw that on Tuesday on that big pullback, of course, on the concern over Greenland. All of that has now, at least for now, been alleviated with the Trump speech saying they would work on negotiations, there would be no invasion, and they would work out a deal that would allow American soldiers, more of them, to be in Greenland, as he calls it, that beautiful piece of ice. All right, we are still awaiting the Prime Minister. Normally, I think he's a very punctual man, but for whatever reason today, it is being delayed. Prime Minister Mark Carney will address the media at the cabinet retreat in Quebec City. It will be the first time we've heard from him since his speech in Davos. Now, while we wait for all this, we're going to see what brings. Let's see what brings in some. We're talking TikTok. We've had some bouncing around. You'll have to forgive me. ByteDance is a subsidiary TikTok. That's what we're going to talk about right now. It's going to be able to continue operating in Canada after an approval from the courts. It was ordered to close back in November 2024 under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Here to talk about that and what it means for Canada-China trade relations is Matt Hatfield, Executive Director of Open Media. And Matt, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a bit of a tap dance kind of day is what we'd call it in TV as we await the Prime Minister. So thank you for being patient and joining us now. Let's get your thoughts on the court ruling and what you think it means.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a strange resolution to a bizarre situation. So a year and a half ago, the government suddenly announced that they had really definitive evidence that there were people working at TikTok Canada who were a threat to Canada's national security. Was that true? We still don't know because nobody but the government ever saw that evidence. So there's been a year and a half of waiting, of supposedly the office would be shut down. It never actually happened. And it looks like this is a bit of a reset, and we'll see what comes from here.
And any feeling on what way this might go? I mean, the timing is rather impeccable that it happened just as we see a deal with China. We see Carney talk about moving away from the U.S. Do we know which way this may go?
Hard to say. The context around this deal has changed immensely. Of course, the relationship with the U.S. has changed. The relationship with China has changed. At the time the previous decision was made, it seemed that there was likely to be a U.S. ban on TikTok. Since then, there's been a different resolution where the U.S. Version of TikTok is being spun off with local oversight of data. Maybe that would be an option pursued by Canada. We're not sure. But really, the interim situation was very strange, where the app was completely available to Canadians. Any concerns around app use of data were not addressed. But it was purely a threat to this domestic office, which didn't make a lot of sense to many analysts.
And we've heard nothing from the Melanie Joly, the minister.
No, not so far. I think they have 90 days now to conduct their secondary review.
But even just I don't think she's commented at all on it, has she?
No, I mean, it's a little bit unclear exactly how this came together. Whether it's associated with Carney's negotiation with China or not, unclear to me. But I think there is the opportunity here for a different policy outcome, one that makes more sense and more comprehensively addresses any concerns around TikTok. So it's perhaps not a ban of local staff, but more dealing with any data concerns with both TikTok and other apps, really with all apps.
And are those realistic concerns about the data, and how do you think they could resolve it to kind of appeal? Well, I think you're going to try to appease about 3 different directions. It may not work, but what would you like to see done that would kind of make this a little smoother?
Yeah, so we'd like to see comprehensive privacy reform to address all app use of data. You know, there's obviously the social media economy runs on surveillance of its users to some degree. And a lot of the data that TikTok collects, if we're concerned about China getting its hands on that data is equally available for sale from data brokers from other apps on the open market. So it's a little bit strange to deal with just one app. We would like to see app use of data really investigated and limited by privacy legislation across the board.
But is there easier access than for TikTok for China? Is that what that is? Is that what the concern is then?
So that has been the concern and the accusation. So one resolution would be something like what the U.S. has done, where they've provided a spun-off local version with local oversight of that app data use. There might be interim solutions as well, where the government would negotiate conditions of reviewing how TikTok is using data in Canada.
And if they talked about selling it, do you feel there'd be a buyer in Canada that would want to pick this up? And
that's a very interesting question. I'm not sure. I think there'd be a lot of concerns around having an appropriate buyer and making sure that that buyer wasn't just, doing the same sale of data and threatening Canadian privacy in the same way that other apps currently do.
And TikTok, I mean, people, we talk about, it came up, it's been up, about 7-8 years now probably, and it's really boomed relative. And it's also, a lot of people love it because it pays better financially, does it not?
Yeah, that's right. TikTok is extremely popular with young Canadians, with young Canadian creators. And one of the issues with removing the Canadian office is it actually probably made it more difficult to regulate TikTok. It meant that the app was fully available in Canada, but if the government wanted to talk policy or talk possible changes with the app, they had no one to speak to.
But for people too, so everybody nothing has really changed right now. Literally, like after all this, we're just back to kind of to square one.
Yeah, and it would be great to see meaningful progress from here, but progress that makes sense, that wasn't just a really drastic removal on one side, but really doing nothing about the app side that is where most of us actually experience TikTok.
Okay. Sorry, Matt, we're getting stuff in my ear. So where does this go? When do you think this could be resolved? Have they offered any kind of timeline, or is this just going to float now for a bit and we'll have to, and does it hinge on how relations with China develop, how relations with the U.S. go, do you think?
I'm sure that there's quite a bit of pressure that can come or go with both China and the U.S. on this deal. By our statutory limitations, the industry minister is expected to conduct the review in the next 90 days. So we should see some kind of outcome in the next 90 days. But as to what pressures will be on it, a lot could happen in 90 days, obviously.
And with the U.S., it's not, the deal the deal hasn't gone through yet, I don't think, has it?
It's in the works.
It's in the works.
Forward. And I guess one possible resolution would be binding TikTok Canada to what's occurring with the U.S. But I think given the complexity of our relationship with the U.S. today, that would not be a good outcome here for Canadians.
No, everything's very complicated right now. Matt, we've got to let you go here. We're going to go ahead to the Prime Minister, but thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
A pleasure. Take care.
Matt Hatfield is Executive Director of Open Media. Now, the Prime Minister, we've been waiting for about 45 minutes for him to address the media. Here he is. Mes chers amis, chers collègues, mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen,
cet endroit est chargé de souvenirs.
is heavy with
Au
the
XVIIIe siècle,
souvenirs.
deux armées se sont affrontées ici dans une bataille
Many
qui a
armies
changé à jamais
clash,
de l'histoire de ce continent.
and the result changed the
Lorsque
result of this
lorsque
continent.
la fumée s'est dissipée,
When
les
the
deux
smoke
commandants
dissipated,
Montcalm gisaient mourants, le destin lié
and both
même
commanders
dans la mort.
were lying dead.
La Nouvelle-France,
The new France,
l'Amérique du Nord britannique était née.
the North American America
Été facile.
of British North America was
Voie
born.
prévisible d'en rester là. Le scénario habituel de la conquête.
The scenario,
vaincus
the
sont
usual
assimilés.
scenario
Le
of
langue
conquest,
supprimée, le foi interdite, le droit
and suppress the right.
C'est ce que
to
les
speak.
conquérants ont fait pendant des mille.
This is what the conquerors did for many years.
De la grande déportation des Acadiens.
From the
passant
great deportation
par
of
le
Acadians,
rapport de Durham suite à la
and
rébellion des
with the Durham
patriotes,
report that followed.
ont cherché à imposer ce modèle.
Some people tried to impose this model for the
Habituel de la
nation
conquête.
after the conquest.
Finalement, ce n'est pas la voie que le
Finally,
Canada a choisie.
It's not the voice that Canada followed,
D'abord,
First
grâce
of
à
all,
la résilience des francophones.
because of
Une
resilience of
résilience
francophones
parfois silencieuse,
with
souvent
a silent
combative,
resistance sometimes.
mais toujours
They kept
déterminée à
fighting, but they were still
préserver une langue,
determined
une
to keep their
culture
language,
et
their
une
culture,
identité.
and their identity.
Ensuite, par pragmatisme, les autorités britanniques ont
The
rapidement
British
compris
authority
qu'on ne gouverne pas durablement 70 000 habitants
have thought
contre
that they
leur
could not
volonté.
reign 70,000
Avec les
inhabitants,
colonies américaines instables au sud.
also with
Ainsi,
the
tout au long de l'histoire
unstable
de notre pays,
American
des décisions
colony
ont été
of
prises
South,
pour construire
down south.
quelque chose de différent ici.
Something was created different here,
Cela n'a pas toujours été une ligne droite.
but
Les
the
progrès
line
ont
was
été
not always
réalisés à
straight.
travers des tensions,
There were
des
tensions,
compromis et parfois des échecs.
compromises.
Mais à plusieurs reprises, le Canada a choisi une voie
Canada chose a
différente.
different
That
voice,
choice,
a different
initially
line.
practical, even self-interested, something remarkable emerged. Not a myth, not a miracle, but a growing commitment that coexistence could make us stronger, that we can build an identity which not only respects our differences, but also celebrates them. Un projet audacieux, que deux
A
peuples
very
puissent
daring project,
parlant des langues différentes,
speaking different
religions
languages,
différentes, vivant sous des traditions juridiques différentes,
living
puissent
under
partager un même pays et build it together.
justice, traditions, different.
Canadian philosopher Charles Taylor contends that people aren't blank slates, but that our identities, personal and national, are constituted through history. In his words, the past is sedimented in the present, and our choices are shaped by what came before. Our country was built on the bedrock of three peoples: Indigenous, French, and British. Long before the battle on these plains, long before the first French ships sailed up the St. Lawrence, Indigenous peoples were the original stewards of this land. They built nations, trading networks, and systems of governance that spanned the entire continent. The Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Innu shaped this land and were shaped by it. The new society adapted to the realities of North America, shaped by the river and forest, by trade with indigenous nations, and by the determination to survive and flourish in this land. When the British came, that civilization did not disappear. It endured, and now it thrives. La Confédération
The Confederation is born from that, of one of these foundation stones between Canadians from different races to work together for their own benefit. They live next to each other.
A été renouvelé lorsque Wilfrid Laurier a gouverné un pays qui avait autrefois
Wilfrid Laurier,
son peuple. Il a été renouvelé avec l'avènement
it was
du
renewed
bilinguisme officiel.
with the official bilingual act.
Lorsque les Québécois ont choisi
When Quebecers
deux
chose
reprises de rester au sein du Canada,
to stay within Canada,
estimant que ce partenariat,
thinking that
malgré
this partnership,
ces frustrations, méritait
even with
non seulement
frustrations they
d'être
had,
préservé, mais aussi d'être renforcé.
to be
Les
preserved
plans
and reinforced.
d'Abraham symbolisent un champ de bataille, oui.
The
Il symbolise aussi le lieu
Then
où
Abraham,
le Canada a commencé à faire
was
le
a
choix
symbol.
historique de
And Canada
privilégier
started to make an
l'adaptation
historic
plutôt
choice.
que l'assimilation,
Instead of being
ou le
assimilated,
partenariat plutôt que la domination,
a
la
partnership
collaboration
instead
plutôt
of
que la
the domination.
division. Oui, cette fondation était imparfaite.
This
Elle
foundation
excluait
was
trop
not
de gens.
perfect.
Elle reposait en partie sur la dépossession de peuples autochtones et sur la
Lies
violation des
with
traités conclus
the native
avec
people.
eux. Mais cette fondation reposait
But
sur
this
l'idée
foundation-
fondamentale que l'unité ne passe pas nécessairement par l'uniformité. Que
That
nous
unity doesn't
pouvons
mean
partager un pays
uniformity
sans nous conformer à une identité unique.
without being
Que nos
conformed
différences reconnues
to a
honnêtement
unique
et gérées
identity,
dans le
a
respect
single identity.
sont une source de force.
This is a strength.
Ce choix résonne à travers notre histoire.
Through
Il
our
résonne
history,
dans les choix faits par les nouveaux arrivants venus de quatre
is
coins du monde
reflected
pour
in
s'établir
newcomers
au
arriving from
Canada.
the four corners
Il
of the world.
résonne dans les choix faits
Present in our
par chaque
choices
génération déterminée à
by
continuer
each
à bâtir,
generation,
non pas sur le sein ou sur la terre, mais sur quelque chose de plus
Not on land.
exigeant et de plus durable. Un
And something
engagement
more
commun à vivre
lasting,
ensemble, à
how to live
accepter les
together,
différences et à rechercher le bien commun.
even with our
Et
differences, and
grâce
to
à
look for
chacun
the best.
de ces choix, le Canada est devenu
Canada
plus riche, plus inclusif.
Richer because of that.
What makes Canada a great country? It's a great country for everyone. It's the greatest country in the world to be a regular person. You don't have to be born rich or to a landed family here. You don't have to be a certain color or worship a certain God. Canadians believe in the value of every other Canadian, their boundless potential to make this great country even better. Our ancestors, despite their differences, believed in each other and in us. Now, there are long periods of history where these values can prosper unchallenged. Ours is not one of them. Our values must be fought for. That's what we are doing. That's what Canadians want. Canadians are up for it. Our history traces an arc of broadening inclusion from biculturalism to multiculturalism, from being British subjects to becoming Canadian citizens, from being two founding peoples to being many peoples living in true partnership with Indigenous peoples. From William Lyon Mackenzie's King's social citizenship to Louis Saint Laurent's liberal internationalism, from Diefenbaker's One Canada to Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Brian Mulroney's environmentalism to Justin Trudeau's pluralism and reconciliation, each generation of Canadians has built a modern, progressive, liberal state that embraces the values of caring and sharing, of equity and fairness for all.
You've been listening to the Prime Minister speaking at the Quebec retreat for his cabinet. We had expected to hear more about what has unfolded over the past week. We're getting a bit of a history lesson about Canada right now. We are monitoring this, and also you can go to CTV News channel. They are carrying this live. If you'd like to hear more of the Prime Minister, we unfortunately, for time constraints, we do have to leave at this point. That is it for us, but we appreciate you joining us. A little bit of a wildness here, but that was it for Trading Day. Have yourself a great day.